Who's to blame? Whose fault is it? Oh, these are great questions. I'm Jon, and here with me is Eyob, and we're going to talk about
marriage,
because we're so qualified. That's the thing that we need to talk about. But last night we were involved in a guy that we celebrate in recovery. He got married last night. I got to officiate. You know how many weddings I've not been good at in my former days, and now I actually get to be a part of the integral part of kind of being the orchestrator. So that was an honor to be there. I feel it's a living immense, and you got to be the MC, the fun job, cracking jokes left, right, and center. How long have you been married?
14 years.
Oh, wow. You nailed that, bro.
I know.
Good job. You knew that? There's some points.
You know why? Because I rehearsed a week prior to it because I screwed up.
Okay, because I was trying to trap you there. I've been married 22 years. It's complicated. We've been together high school, which is 33 years. But, you know, we made it real at 22 years old. Or 22 years ago. So what are we talking about when it comes to marriage? Or like, what's the point that we want to make?
Well, we want to identify what the problem is. I know the
problem with marriage?
With marriage, in the sense that in my relationship, in my marriage, when I got married, what I thought was marriage versus the reality of marriage are completely two different things. And part of it is this, and people often say this, you can be in bed with somebody and you can feel so far apart. And that silence that you experience, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And so I want to understand, why is that happen in so many marriages?
So then the problem is disunity. Imagine, being in disunity. It's hard to have good conversations. It's hard to parent. Even last night, I brought up the fact that God made man in his image. And then God needed man to grow and be strengthened, kind of like going to the gym. You got to tear muscle. So God made woman for these hardships to happen. And then God made this beautiful garden with nurture and nourishment and provision and protection and purpose within the garden, and man and woman could grow and live together and name all the animals and just have a glorious time hand in hand with God. But what comes in the middle is the enemy came in the name of fear and caused doubt, and to be independent, to be isolated, and to be full of shame and guilt and all that kind of stuff. And it's no different from our marriages. We get married and we come together in a garden. And so what happens is that for the most part, we both have emotional natures, neither wrong or right. They can be healthy or unhealthy. But these emotional natures, for me and probably most male experiences, is that we see these emotional natures and we're like, these are the hardships that we're talking to. This is how we grow and strengthen. And so I try to fix these hardships. I try to fix these emotional natures. I try to change them. And then the hardships get worse. And the emotions get hotter and heavier. And it's like, man, I'm not trying to have a morning like this. This is not productive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what I came up with?
What?
My solution? Shut my mouth. Shut my mouth is the biggest. So I tried it. Failed that first day. I'm like, it's like, it's okay to fit. Second day, failed. Like, I can't shut my mouth. Third day, I couldn't shut my mouth again. And finally, I shut my mouth. And what happened to the problem?
It got worse.
It got worse because ignoring it actually is more detrimental to the problem. And so this problem causes a married couple to what happened? Separate, isolate, and go into our own gardens. And there we are with disunity, isolation, separation. And this is where we can start to have addictive cycles. That can be relational addiction, or it could be, I need to ease and comfort myself. So I go to food or pornography or substance abuse, the drugs and the alcohol, fill in the blank, whatever you're looking for to ease this burden, to ease this problem. So what is this actually a symptom of? And this is kind of what we were unpacking, because we could try to solve this problem, but what was the greater problem that we found?
Because we often think it's a horizontal problem.
Yeah.
But it's actually a vertical problem. And that's the challenge of it, is it's that to a guy, if you tell him, listen, your problem is actually with God, It's a very difficult, because we're very practical people.
A spiritual problem.
You have a spiritual problem. And so what I've learned in my own journey is that as I've gotten connected in the garden of my heart and started to have conversation with God, then I started to get my identity validated by God, so then that I can actually be the leader that I'm called to be. So often, I think, in this is what we're really talking about, is that we tend to, once we feel like we can't solve a problem, and then we go to silence, and then eventually what happens is we become complacent in the relationship, and then we're not even present. And that is what is really, I think, the consequence of it. So for me, it's like, what does leadership look like in the marriage? What is the role?
And that's becoming spiritually fit in connection with God. So the opposite of addiction, the opposite of isolation is connection. So I have to first spiritually connect with God and have this relationship okay. The symptom of this relationship not being okay is this relationship not being okay. And so as I grow spiritually and become spiritually fit, now I bring my strength into the relationship. And part of that strength is communication. And so now I get to communicate with God, and I'm in unity with God, and I have peace and unity and joy and connection. And now I bring that strength into the garden that may be a little bit disruptive. And as long as I'm good-willed and bringing my strength into that garden, we can have the garden back together. And so we have a communication card to help with this, to get it started, to have a reminder. But the basics of it is to be able to communicate effectively, we need to have assertive communication. So we classified 4 communication types: aggressive, passive-aggressive, passive, and assertive. We want to be assertive. And so aggressive kind of looks like I count and you don't count. So I'm going to stomp on you. I'm going to get aggressive with you. I'm going to try to control you in a puff my shirt up kind of way, aggressiveness. And then the passive aggressive is I'm just going to criticize you behind your back. I'm going to make little comments. Well, you never. And I throw doubt. I throw suspicion and that kind of thing. And then the passive is just I'm going to go to work, sit on the couch when I get home. And if I have to order pizza, I'll order pizza, because we're really separate here. So assertive communication actually means I count and you count. Maybe by now it's separated gardens. And so I have to enter into her garden with assertive I count, you count communication. The symptom of the problem is disunity in our gardens in marriage. And then the solution starts with this vertical relationship that I have with God spiritually, and then I bring my strength into the garden. Who goes first? I heard some doctors say the most mature.
That's wise. That's wise.
So who's ever leading that? The guys with the competition are like, oh, I'm the most mature by far.
I'm going to show her.
I'm going to show her. So who's to blame? Whose fault is it? These are kind of ignitions of this problem that we'll have together. And taking responsibility and good communication means I count and you count. So who is to blame? Well, that doesn't even need to be part of the conversation. We're not attacking. We're not accusing each other, but we're talking to each other in love and compassion and empathy. Man, this can be scary times. The honeymoon phase of a year has probably subsided, and then the garden gets disruptive. So we just want to give you some pro tips of the beginning of entering into each other's garden and becoming one and unity, and we do this through effective communication. So there will be a link below. We have a little communication card for you if you want to click that link and just kind of add that to your daily routine. It has helped me out tremendously. It's helped Joe out tremendously, and together we can grow and be in unity
and happy
and harmony and
happy.
Joy.
Joy.
Peace and joy.
Peace and
and
joy.
when the garden at home is peaceful,
everything
you can take on the world. But when there's disunity in the garden, everything gets hard.
It's such a
and so that's a symptom of the problem vertically. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.